Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for having us out here. This is super exciting. Being in the blockchain space, it's really cool seeing the intersection with space itself. Two very disruptive things, and trying to use the technologies to get out there and explore the great unknown. So without further ado, we want to introduce a project that we've been working on for the past 6 months called Moonshot Express. Very quickly, I don't know if you've seen our t-shirts, I think the mission itself is pretty self-evident. We have a Bitcoin logo with hashtag to the moon and then literally underneath of it. So I think we're going to be, this next 30 minutes talking about how we're going to take this meme that's been around in the entire Bitcoin community of sending Bitcoin to the moon, and then maybe we can realize that this goal isn't quite so far-fetched. But let's jump into the narrative. So first off, I would like for you guys perhaps to close your eyes real quick and let's imagine some kind of future moment together. So you're on a nice summer day, the breeze is coming nicely, it's dark outside, you're looking up at the night sky, seeing all the sparkling stars, and then you look up at the moon and it's nice and shiny and bright, and you sit there knowing with full satisfaction that up on that moon is a treasure chest. And in that treasure chest is full of coins given and donated by the entire world, who is all ambitiously waiting to do the next best thing for all of humanity. And then you know, with the satisfaction, that you can participate too. You whip out your smartphone, you send some money to the moon, and you know someday someone is gonna go up there and get that money and claim that treasure chest. So this is the vision that's been on our minds and really been driving us crazy of how can we pull off something so epic. First thing we realize is it's probably not so far-fetched. I mean, if you think of the technology involved for pulling something like this off, we got rockets, we got blockchain wallets, and we have experts in both of these fields who can pull off great works of engineering. And I don't know if any of you heard what ICOs are, but there's been quite a bit of money rolling around for sometimes the most silliest of ideas. So without further ado, it makes sense that maybe we can pull all these pieces together to pull off something just so absurd and so hilarious that it then changes forever humanity. But we'll dive into that in a little bit. So first, a quick introduction. So my name is Dean Masley. I was the last executive director of the Blockchain Education Network, and right now I'm working on a startup called Nest Egg over in Amsterdam. And then we hear of a...
I'm Ahsan. Does this work? Can you
talking
hear
to
me?
this guy.
I think I need to talk. Yeah. All right. My name is Ahsan. I'm an aerospace engineering student, and I've been programming and developing since I was 15, and right now diving into the blockchain space. So this project is like a perfect combination of both my interests. So yeah.
And then also, just to let you guys know, we're just the pretty faces up here right now, but there's actually an entire community of people that are joining with us and contributing on these problems. We just get the pleasure of being here talking to you today. But we're actually a huge open community that everyone's allowed to join and participate and help us solve these problems. So let's get into it. The first big question of why would we want to do this? I mean, it's pretty absurd, and there's probably a lot of other great problems that the world could be working on. So then the biggest question is, why do we want to send Bitcoin to the moon? So our first way of looking at this is a way for, as Vinay was talking earlier, of bringing humanity together to take on goals that normally required nation states. We want to decentralize the space race into an effort that everyone on Earth, if they so want to, can participate, join, and make larger. And in doing so, we can put something out there on the moon, a treasure chest that is, valuable to anyone who likes money. So hopefully everyone. The quick economics of the Moonshot project is a few assumptions. One, if we put a Bitcoin wallet on the moon, and everyone is sending money to this wallet, then over time, the price of the wallet will be going up in value. The second factor is that over time, space travel decreases. Technology gets better, we find new ways of doing things, and these technologies become more accessible to more people. So then, with those two factors in mind, there comes an intersection point where it might actually just be worth it to go up to the moon and come back a millionaire, or whatever you want to be, whatever that would be. So,
I'll take this one. So it's a bit awkward to bend over while talking, but how are we going? Yeah, this one. Great. Okay. So how are we actually going to do this? As Dean said earlier, every puzzle piece of this puzzle has already been solved. That's actually also one of the reasons why we chose the moon instead of Mars, to go to right now, because this goal is very achievable. We've been to the moon. We know how to launch something to the moon, how to crash land there, something there. Every single piece of the puzzle is already done. It just needs to be put together by a bunch of people that actually want to do it, and it needs to be funded. So right now we have a three-step process of how we can achieve this project. First is called the key pair problem. How do we put the wallet on the moon without anyone knowing the private key on Earth? This is a cryptography problem and like a blockchain problem. But if you do that, how do you trust the private key on the moon is actually attached to the public key that's known on Earth? This needs to be 100% factually, without any trust in people. This needs to be like verified like that. Yeah.
You don't want to be trusting us that we have the wallet? Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really important too. I mean, we want to make sure that we create a wallet that everyone can trust. The key's not on Earth. Because if you guys think we're just trying to scam you and saying we're sending a wallet to the moon while taking all the money, that really wouldn't be a good incentive to put money into this moon wallet.
I'll keep the private key in my pocket, and you can all send money to the moon. Like, we don't want that to happen, and we don't even want anyone to think that's happening.
So that's why we want to make the first biggest problem is this paradox of how do we create a key pair in which we can put that private key on the moon, and everyone knows it's attached to this public key that everyone can donate to, but no one on Earth has a possibility of knowing this key until you go up and get it. So that's the first challenge.
Yeah, without actually seeing that this would be a challenge, we were first thinking of just having a titanium plate and etched into it would be the private key to the wallet. But there's a ton of problems with that, because the machine etching it into the titanium plate, it gets the data. Like, if the data is known on the Earth, like what the private key is, then it can be like reverse engineered somehow, and we need to be 100% certain that that can't be the case. So right now we're thinking it needs to be done on launch or on the moon, the private public key generation, and transmitting it back to the Earth. But then another issue arises, like what kind of hardware do we need? What happens with hardware that's meant for space? It goes into a long testing period. Can it be tampered with or not? All those kind of issues. So that's basically the key pair problem.
Cool. So then let's assume we find out how to pull this off. We do a few hackathons and some crafty engineers say, yo, we can pull this off. People can verify that the public key is attached to this unknown private key. So then the next step is finding the rocket. As a space convention, I'm sure you guys are well aware of the multitude of rockets being launched into space. And so then the factor for us is, which one of these can we piggyback on top of, or should we launch our own rocket? We've been going across to different space. We went to the ESA, for example, and talked with some engineers there. We had some professors from the University of Delft who offered to put a smaller rocket on a satellite going to space to low Earth orbit and launch from there. And basically the nutshell is there's a lot of different paths to get to the moon. So having the specific logistics worked out of which rocket and how much it's going to cost takes us a lot farther along the way towards what we need to do next with it. Oh, and then a quick thing, so the decision is, should we piggyback on back of somebody else, or should we launch a rocket ourselves? And there's a few caveats to each of those situations.
And these figures of 5 million and 65 million are not very accurate. It's just to give people a ballpark figure of and what kind of terms we're talking about. And now we're sitting in a room with people from the space industry. You all know this is just a really broad ballpark. It's not an accurate thing. And also the issue with piggybacking is that if you launch a rover or something to the moon, and somewhere on that rover attached is our device that holds the private key. In space, like the laws that govern space is maritime law. And so right. So, like maritime law says, if you launch if you have a device somewhere around in the sea or in space, you can claim a certain area around that, and then the people we will be piggybacking on could claim the private key as their own and have no one have access to it. So all these kind of like issues are also still need to be figured out for like finding a rocket and finding a launch plan to how to get the private key actually on the moon. Right.
Okay. And then the third problem, or rather the third challenge. Let's say we figure out the key pair. We know which rocket we're going to choose it on. Then the very last question is, how are we going to fund this thing? So the biggest problem with the crowdfunding with ICOs is that most people, when they invest in an ICO, expect whatever they're buying is going to go up in price later. It's going to be part of some epic DApp that's used across the world, and that's why your token's going to be worth so much money. So then how do we convince people to give money to a project which is absolutely not going to make any ROI? You're literally just putting money into a rocket to launch into space. So somehow we're going to have to generate some kind of marketing campaign or some kind of marketing gimmick to get people to be incentivized to want to participate in this awesome cause. I mean, I think enough people are excited by it and would be willing to contribute just for the sake of it, and enough people doing a small amount can make that worth it. But we had a few ideas as well to maybe perhaps further along the use case or part of the funness of this activity.
And the main idea of this should be in the lines of the $1 million web page. I don't know if you guys know that. There was a guy once that had a website called $1 million page or something, and he had a million pixels on that website, and he sold every one of those pixels for €1 or $1, and he earned $1 million for like selling spots.
Yeah. So people were buying their names, and now they have their name on the website forever. And we kind of took a little bit of an interest in this idea. For example, what if you could engrave your name onto a rocket by buying these moon rocks per se, and then that lets you engrave per pixel onto a rocket that's going to make this historic leap into space.
This is not the solution, but something in the lines of like the $1 million homepage should be the benefit you get from participating in the ICO. It shouldn't be a financial benefit. It should be something like that to like make your existence permanent by putting something on the moon with your name on it or something like that.
So yeah, so this is, and then also another big one is we're also organizing a volunteer group, a bunch of people who are going to be executing this strategy. So then another big important factor is how is this money going to be spent? Because if we're spending all this time making sure that the actual wallet is generated securely and verifiably, we also have to make sure that whoever's organizing the logistics of actually organizing the rocket, paying for the equipment, and making sure this all goes swell, that too needs proper validation and making sure that someone doesn't go run off and buy a few Lambos. So we're creating also, okay, cool. Yeah, so, all right, anyway, that's why we want to make sure that the governance of the money is also appropriate. And there's a few methods of doing that with like DICOs, where you have a faucet that can only release so much at some time or whatever, but that's also part of these challenges that we're approaching and letting everyone in the world attack this. And yeah, marketing.
That was quick.
Cool. So then the very last phase of this is like, okay, sounds great. People like to go to the moon, and the challenges don't seem too hard. I'm sure a few of you in the room even have some answers that we haven't scoped out yet. So then the real question is, how is this going to be pulled off? What is Moonshot Express? And the answer is quite simple. We're a global community of people who are just like participating in our spare time. We're contributing answers and proposals to these big problems. Some people will write, for example, a proposal of how to do the public-private key problem. People will add to the discussion, and then we send it around to everyone we know and saying, hey, you must know someone who can add a little extra piece to this kind of solution so we can bring it to the next level. So we're doing a bit of marketing. So as you can see, we went to the Groningen Hackathon in the Netherlands a few months ago, and we brought this nice poster board where people were going around putting their faces on the moonshot going up. But we really want to emphasize that this is a community effort. We're making this not just something done by a company or a nation state, but rather just by enthusiasts who think this is like a really cool idea.
Yeah, anyone can jump in. The project is owned by no one, and if you want to take the lead in some kind of expertise area, you can do that. It's all open, friendly community for just getting something to the moon.
Absolutely. So yeah, so this is what we think could mark the beginning of a new era of human history. We already have this technology where we're moving the physical world around us with like touches of a button, and then we're using these new blockchain technologies to even remove the middlemen that were responsible for that. And what better way to mark the power of this technology and the ability it has to aggregate human behavior and organization than doing something so outlandish, such as literally sending Bitcoin to the moon and making this meme a reality, making this some kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy that only requires a bunch of enthusiasts, what in the past required huge nation states or huge corporations. So this act on its own will make it so that anyone in the future working on bigger problems in blockchain or other technology, if anyone is like being a hater and giving them crap for that, they can just point up at the moon and say, well, it's not rocket science. And so we think this is like a nice way of making tangible something that everyone in this room kind of already feels. So yeah, let's lead the way, guys. Let's be the first people to go and bring people into space since, I think, 1972, or something like that. First to the moon, yeah. And then we have a nice little video for you guys to get in the spirit.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept.
Power of Bitcoin. Bitcoin hits a new high.
We talked about Bitcoin. A lot of people out there are fanatics.
The moon is the limit. It's going to
$1 million.
You might take 10% and put it in Bitcoin.
If people have got lots of Bitcoins and they want to go to space. If people have got lots of Bitcoins and they want to go to space.
+5. +10. Burn out.
So yeah, we welcome all of you to join, hop on board the rocket, and you can come onto our website right now today, join the discussions. If you have any insights, you can contribute and bring this to the next level. Because the way this works is as we solve one problem after the other, which can be done by just simply one person giving the right answer, we're moving on and keeping this momentum rolling to actually pull this great feat off. So yeah.
And as a last note, we're building a platform that Moonshot Express as the platform to like organize and to build this whole project and to structure it. The structuring is one of the things that really needs to be done well. And it's just I built this and I wanted this to have a slide. So and I have not much to say about it. So yeah, okay. Thank you.